Something is happening in real time, and the people who are supposed to be paying attention are looking in the wrong direction again. Kendrick Lamar has not officially announced anything. He has not sat down for a Rollout interview. He has not confirmed the title, a date, or a track list. And yet, at this exact moment, the loudest conversation in hip-hop is about an album he has not even said exists yet. An album that one single tweet, one single hand wrap, and one single feature confirmation have already turned into the most anticipated project of the next 12 months. That is not accident. That is not luck. That is a man who has trained the entire genre to move when he breathes, and every single person losing their mind in a comment section right now is proving it works. There is a specific tweet floating around claiming the next Kendrick Lamar album is boxing-themed and coming soon, and the second that tweet landed, Drake's fanbase, the same fanbase that spent the last 18 months telling us Kendrick Lamar is irrelevant, washed, a one-hit wonder against their guy, collectively started crashing out under every post, every clip, every screenshot they could find. Now, stop and think about what you're actually watching here. You are watching a fan base that supposedly does not care about a man they cannot stop typing about. You are watching people who claim the beef is over, refuse to stop reliving it. And you are watching a narrative, the Kendrick is ducking interviews, Kendrick is hiding, Kendrick is scared narrative, get pushed at the exact same time DJ Dahi confirms a Kendrick Lamar feature. At the exact same time, a boxing-themed rumor detonates. At the exact same time, Aubrey Drake Graham himself just dropped 3 albums that Billboard confirmed are aimed squarely at Kendrick Lamar. Those 3 things are not 3 stories. They are one story. And when we get to the breakdown of what that hand wrap at the 2026 Grammys actually signaled, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand that the version of this situation you are being sold on Twitter has almost nothing to do with what is actually happening. Everybody is watching the tweet. Nobody is watching the machine that made the tweet matter. That is the story tonight. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So let me lay out the pieces on the table before we start moving them around, because context is everything, and half the people yelling about this situation right now do not actually know the sequence of events. Kendrick Lamar, coming off arguably the most dominant 24 months any rapper has had in the streaming era, a Super Bowl halftime show, the highest-grossing rap tour of all time, twice broken by the same man, a Pulitzer-adjacent cultural moment with GNX, a Grammy sweep, and a diss record in Not Like Us that turned into a genre-defining anthem, has been in a public cool-down period. That cool-down is what Drake's fanbase decided to interpret as retreat. In their framing, no new album equals no relevance, and into that vacuum they poured every possible narrative they could invent. Kendrick is hiding, Kendrick is ducking interviews, Kendrick has nothing left to say, Kendrick used up his last card. Meanwhile, in the real world, Aubrey Drake Graham dropped Iceman, a full 9th studio album on May 15, 2026, plus 2 companion projects, Habibti and Maid of Honor. And according to Billboard's own breakdown, the disses on that project are not aimed at DJ Khaled or Rick Ross or the 20 other names Drake stans want to pretend are the target. The disses are aimed directly, repeatedly, and unmistakably at Kendrick Lamar, referenced by name and by lyrical callback across multiple tracks, including Make Them Pay and Make Them Know. So the guy who is supposedly over the beef made an entire trilogy of albums about the beef. Cool. Then, Kendrick shows up to the 2026 Grammy Awards wearing a boxing hand wrap on his right hand, reported by XXL, Complex, Hot 97, Hot New Hip Hop, every credible outlet in the space, and the internet immediately, correctly, connects it to the Euphoria bar. He's Terrence Trunton, I'm Terrence Crawford, yeah, I'm whooping feet. Then, DJ Dahi announces his album, Black Boy Alternative, track list confirmed, and track 3 is How to Pray, featuring Kendrick Lamar and Amber Mark, dropping August 28th. Then, a tweet lands claiming the next Kendrick album is coming soon and will be boxing-themed. Every single one of those pieces individually is significant. Stacked on top of each other, in the sequence they landed, they are not rumors, they are a rollout. And that is what nobody screaming about ducked interviews wants to admit, because if they admit it, they have to admit that the man they said was done is actually running the entire board while pretending he is not even in the room. the first layer of what is happening is right there in front of everybody's face. And this is the part where I want to walk through it slowly, because the surface level evidence alone is enough to end the Kendrick is hiding conversation forever. Piece 1. The Grammys hand wrap. This was February 2026. He walks the carpet, he sits in the seat, and his right hand is bandaged in a boxing wrap. Not a medical bandage, not a subtle accessory. A visible, deliberate, styled boxing hand wrap in a room full of cameras. XXL ran the story, Complex ran the story, Hot New Hip Hop ran the story. Every hip-hop outlet with a functioning editor understood what they were seeing, because Kendrick Lamar does not accessorize by accident. This is the same man who wore the crown of thorns for the Big Steppers tour, the same man who used a Rolex on the Damn cover with intent, the same man whose Super Bowl set was choreographed down to the shoelace. When Kendrick Lamar shows up somewhere wearing something specific, it is not fashion, it is foreshadowing. Piece 2. The DJ Dahi confirmation. Black Boy Alternative, dropping August 28th, track 3, How to Pray, Kendrick Lamar and Amber Mark. That is not a rumor. That is a printed track list from a project that has been announced by every music news outlet from Stereo Gum to Complex. So the guy who supposedly has nothing to say is literally in the studio putting features on other people's albums. Piece 3. The boxing theme tweet. Whoever posted it, whether it turns out to be true or turns out to be a fan connecting dots, is almost irrelevant at this point, because the response to it, the pandemonium, the crash outs, the meltdowns from a fan base that claims to have moved on, is proof by itself that this man's shadow is bigger than most rappers' entire discographies. Piece 4, and this is the one nobody wants to talk about, Iceman. Drake's own album confirmed the beef is not over. Billboard's own list of every diss on Iceman, Habibti, and Maid of Honor makes it clear that a significant portion of Drake's 2026 output is a response to a man who has not addressed him since 2024. Think about that ratio for a second. One man made 3 albums to reply, the other man wore a hand wrap, and we are being told the second man is the one hiding. Does anyone realize how insane that framing actually is when you say it out loud? Does anybody hear it? Because I want you to sit with it, because everything you have been told about who is on offense in this situation and who is on defense has been backwards from the jump. The evidence is on record. Every outlet reported it. The receipts are printed, and the fan base pushing the he's ducking narrative is doing so while their guy is literally 3 albums deep into a one-sided conversation with a man who is not answering the phone. That is not a beef. That is a voicemail, and the voicemail is full. And oh, do I have more? Because the surface stuff, the hand wrap, the Dahi feature, the boxing tweet, that is the appetizer. That is what the average fan on Twitter is arguing about. That is the version of this story that is playing out in reply threads and quote tweets and TikTok comments. What I'm about to walk you into next is the actual cultural machine underneath it, the reactions from people who are not random accounts, the industry voices who have started speaking on this, the shift in the room that tells you the temperature has already changed, even though nobody has said the thing out loud yet. And the Drake fan base is really not gonna like this next part, because the very people they used to cite as neutral hip-hop voices have started tilting in a direction they did not see coming. So if you've been enjoying this so far, do me a favor, drop a comment right now telling me if you think this album drops before the end of 2026 or slides into 2027, because the receipt on that prediction is coming back around later. Layer 2 is the cultural evidence, and this is where the story stops being about tweets and starts being about the actual voices inside hip-hop shifting their posture. Start with the DSP Stat and Company clip that's been circulating. 2 people who spend their entire content cycle breaking down streaming numbers and industry moves, talking openly about the possibility of a new Kendrick Lamar album and framing it as a win, not an if. That is not fanboy speculation. That is analytics-facing content acknowledging that the wind has already changed. Then look at the interview conversation clip everybody is passing around, the one where a panel is having the discussion about whether Kendrick Lamar is ducking interviews. Watch it carefully, because even inside that clip, the sharpest voice in the room, the one arguing that Kendrick doesn't owe anyone a sit-down, is holding the line correctly.
And the counter-argument, the "he needs to talk to the culture" argument, immediately collapses the moment somebody in the panel points out that Aubrey Graham himself, the guy this crowd is comparing him to, has not sat down for a real culture-forward interview with anyone outside the corporate machine. Dusky gave a story about Drake reaching out early. Cool, that's one relationship. That's not the same as being present with the culture through media. The double standard is baked into the framing, and the moment you notice it, the whole ducked interviews narrative falls apart in your hands. Then take Dave Free, Kendrick's longest tenured collaborator, co-founder of PG Lang, the strategist behind the visual and narrative architecture of every Kendrick era since Good Kid, who has been quietly posting imagery that fans have already flagged as connected to the boxing thread. That is not a random Instagram carousel. That is a man whose entire job is to seed narrative doing his job. Then look at the community shift. Reddit's Kendrick Lamar subreddit is currently the calmest it has been in a year. A fan base that is not panicked, not defensive, not begging for a drop because they can read the choreography. Meanwhile, the Drake-facing communities are lit up with speculation, cope, and preemptive dismissals of an album that hasn't even been announced. Does anyone realize how telling that is? One fan base is on offense. The other is trying to build a defense for something that hasn't happened yet. That is not the posture of a fan base that thinks their guy is winning. That is the posture of a fan base that knows the punch is coming. Then bring in Terrence Crawford himself, the undefeated pound-for-pound boxer that Kendrick name-checked on Euphoria, has posted with Kendrick, acknowledged Kendrick, and shows up as a
recurring symbolic figure across this rollout in a way that no other public figure does. If the theme is real, that connection is not incidental. It is intentional casting. Now, I already know somebody is typing, "You are reading too much into a hand wrap." I hear you. I want to be fair to that argument for exactly one paragraph because the counter is worth acknowledging. Could this be fan speculation getting ahead of itself? Sure. Could the hand wrap be nothing more than fashion? Theoretically. Could the tweet be a random account chasing engagement? Absolutely. But here's why that framing collapses the moment you stack the pieces together. Fashion accidents do not coincidentally align with a diss track bar from 2 years ago referencing the exact boxer whose rap style you happen to be wearing. Random tweets do not coincidentally land the same week your longtime creative partner starts posting boxing-adjacent imagery. Feature confirmations do not coincidentally arrive at the same moment the loudest rival in your career is 3 albums into a monologue directed at you. When one thing lines up, it is a coincidence. When 5 things line up in the same direction inside a 6-week window, it is a plan. And when we shift into what is actually driving that plan behind the scenes, the business layer, the ownership layer, the machine that is quietly repositioning underneath all of this, you're going to see why everybody arguing about is he dropping or is he not has been asking the wrong question the entire time. Here's the gear shift. Everything up to this point has been the surface, the hand wrap, the feature, the tweet, the panel clip, the cultural chatter. Now I want to pull the camera all the way back because what is actually happening in this moment has almost nothing to do with a boxing theme and almost everything to do with the way Kendrick Lamar has quietly rewired his position inside the music business over the last 4 years, and how that rewiring is what makes this rollout, if it is a rollout, one of the most dangerous industry moves a rapper has made in the modern era. Angle 1. The PG Lang architecture. Kendrick Lamar is not signed to Top Dog Entertainment in the way people still talk about him. He hasn't been for years. PG Lang is his own entity, co-founded with Dave Free, and its structural relationship to Interscope and Universal is fundamentally different from the traditional label-artist deal most of his peers are operating inside. That means when Kendrick rolls out a project, the ownership dynamics, the masters, the publishing splits, the merch pipeline, the touring share, are not the same as when Aubrey Graham rolls out through a legacy OVO into Universal structure. Every dollar of a Kendrick album cycle moves through a structure he built. Every dollar of an Iceman cycle moves through a structure that was built for him. That gap is not just financial, it's strategic, because it means Kendrick controls the tempo. He does not have to drop on a label calendar. He does not have to drop to hit a shareholder quarter. He drops when the moment is engineered to detonate. Angle 2, the streaming economy. When Kendrick Lamar dropped GNX in November 2024, the entire hip-hop streaming market shifted. Reports across the industry noted that hip-hop had been losing market share for years, and the return of Kendrick, combined with the Not Like Us cultural moment, reversed that trend inside a single quarter. The genre came back because he came back. That is not a fan opinion. That is a data-facing reality that Billboard, Spotify's loud and clear reporting patterns, and multiple industry newsletters documented in real time. So when Kendrick Lamar considers his next drop, he is not just thinking about his own album cycle, he is thinking about a genre whose economic pulse is now tied to his release calendar. That is a level of leverage almost no rapper has ever had in the modern streaming era, and every label executive in the game knows it, whether they say it publicly or not. Angle 3, the media environment. This is the piece that connects back to the ducking interviews narrative and blows it apart. The reason Kendrick Lamar does not do the same media rounds as everybody else is not because he is hiding. It is because the media rounds most rappers are being pushed toward, the white streamer podcasts, the corporate-safe long-form sits, the industry-adjacent sit-downs, are structurally designed to extract narrative from an artist and hand it to a platform. Kendrick does not need those platforms. His music is the platform. His visuals are the platform. His live shows are the platform. When a rapper is on the wrong side of the leverage equation with media, they need the interview to sell the album. When a rapper is on the right side, the album sells itself and the media has to come to them. That's why the he doesn't talk to the culture framing is not just wrong, it's the exact framing you would expect from voices who are frustrated that they cannot metabolize him into their content. The people demanding Kendrick sit down are, in almost every case, the people who need him to sit down more than he needs to be sitting there. And this is where the ducked interviews narrative reveals itself as something completely different from what it looks like on the surface. It's not a criticism of Kendrick's engagement with the culture. It's a complaint from a media ecosystem that has lost the leverage it used to have over top-tier artists. And Kendrick Lamar is the clearest living example of what that leverage loss looks like in real time. And once you see it that way, every clip of a panel arguing about whether he owes them a sit-down looks less like cultural discourse and more like industry professionals negotiating in public for access they're not going to get. Now bolt those three angles together, the ownership structure, the streaming leverage, the media leverage, and stack them under the choreography of the hand wrap, the feature confirmation, the Dave Free imagery, the boxing theme tweet. What you're looking at is not a rumored album. You're looking at a man who has spent 4 years quietly building the exact conditions under which he can drop whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, with a genre economically dependent on him doing it. And that's the part of this story that nobody screaming in comment sections is prepared to say out loud. So here's the truth bomb, and I want to lay this out with real weight, because if you've been with me this far in the video, you deserve the full picture. The reason the Drake fanbase is crashing out this hard, this fast, over a single, unverified, unattributed tweet is because they know something they won't admit publicly. They know that in the current configuration of hip-hop, Kendrick Lamar does not need to release an album to remain the center of the conversation, and Aubrey Graham Drake does not stop being the center of it by releasing 3 of them. Iceman, Habibti, and Maid of Honor dropped on the same day in May 2026. Billboard confirmed the disses on those projects are Kendrick-facing, and in the 6 months since, the cultural conversation has not settled on Drake as the winner of the round. It hasn't even settled on Drake as the sender of the round. It has drifted quarter by quarter towards a man who has not said a word, because the last word Kendrick spoke was Not Like Us, and that word still runs on every speaker in every function from Los Angeles to Lagos. That's what real cultural anchor looks like. That's what leverage sounds like at maximum volume. And when the hand wrap showed up at the Grammys, when Dahi confirmed How to Pray, when the boxing theme tweet dropped, what actually happened in the Drake fan ecosystem was not
confusion. It was recognition. They recognized the choreography because they had been waiting for it. They knew the answer was coming eventually. They just did not know what it was going to sound like. And the meltdown you are watching in comment sections right now is the sound of a fan base realizing that the album Iceman was designed to preempt is not going to be preempted, because the man it was aimed at was never in a rush. He was measuring, he was watching, he was letting a full album cycle from his opposition play out in public, absorbing the fan base's temperature, tracking the cultural drift, and waiting for the exact moment where a single accessory at a Grammy telecast would carry more informational weight than a 3-album trilogy. And that is what a hand wrap did. One piece of gauze on one hand at one award show moved the entire hip-hop conversation for 30 days. One man does the work in silence, the other one narrates his own struggle across a trilogy. One man lets a hand wrap say more than a 30-track album, the other one drops the 30-track album and still cannot control the story. That is not a coincidence. That is not luck. That is what integrity looks like when it compounds over a decade. And it is what the culture course-correcting looks like when it finally decides which version of greatness it is going to reward. If you have watched all the way to this point, I want you to understand something clearly. The reason Kendrick Lamar is winning this era is not because he is more talented, even though he is. It is not because he has better production, even though he does. It is because he has spent every year of his career refusing to be metabolized by the machine that eats every other rapper. He does not overexpose. He does not overexplain. He does not overshare. He does not sit down with every microphone that is pointed at him. And in a genre that has been trained to reward the loudest voice in the room, the quietest one is the one everybody is currently trying to figure out. The evidence is on the record, the receipts are printed, and the version of the culture that Not Like Us reactivated, a culture that rewards discipline, intention, craft, and pressure, is still the version we are living inside right now, one Grammy hand wrap at a time. Everything is going to be okay. The right person is in the right seat. The music is coming, and it's going to be exactly what it is supposed to be, whether the fan base is screaming in the replies or ready for it or not. And this is only the start, because if you think one tweet, one hand wrap, and one feature confirmation are the whole story, you're going to be blown out of the water by what's coming next. There are 2 things I'm watching closely over the next 60 days that anybody who cares about this story needs to be tracking. Number 1, the Dahi album drops August 28th with How to Pray, and the second that record is in the world, the sonic footprint of it, the production style, the vocal delivery, the mixing choices, is going to give us the clearest tell yet on where Kendrick's next full project is headed sonically. If it lands in a specific tonal register, the boxing theme rumor gets a lot more real a lot faster. Number 2, the awards cycle. Grammy submissions are already reportedly stacked in Kendrick's favor for 2026, and the ceremony choreography, what he wears, whether he performs, whether he speaks, is going to be the second loudest signal of the rollout. Watch both of those, track them, bookmark them, because when the album is actually announced, whether that's late 2026 or early 2027, everybody who was paying attention to the right pieces is going to be 6 months ahead of the crowd, and everybody who was arguing about ducked interviews is going to be 6 months behind. That's why you subscribe. That's why you turn the bell on. That's why you sit in the comments section and drop your prediction right now on whether the boxing theme is real, whether the album drops in 2026 or 2027, and whether Drake's fan base has one more meltdown left in them before the year is out. Thank you sincerely for making it this far. This channel does not work without you, and every single like, every super thanks, every membership, every share is what keeps me in the seat doing this. If you want to keep the conversation going, my X is in the pinned comment and the description. And before you close this tab, do yourself a favor and click the next video on your screen, because I'm about to break down the one bar on Iceman that nobody is talking about. The specific line where Aubrey Graham accidentally confirmed on his own album that he knows exactly what is coming, exactly who it's coming from, and exactly why he cannot stop it. If you thought the hand wrap was loud, wait until you hear what he said out of his own mouth. See you in the next one.